Welcome to the Instinctive Influencers podcast, a show where influence becomes one of your tools for success. Now, here are your hosts, Brian Weber and Ed Haley.
Hi, I'm Brian.
And I am Ed.
And welcome to the Instinctive Influencers show. We're so happy you're with us today. Ed, we are rounding out our little series today. But before we go into that, this week, because I'm going to rile you up a little bit, I'm going to enjoy this. This week, you get to experience something that's brand new in talent management, which we've talked about before, where you kind of get to pick where you go next, because obviously you can't stay where you are until you retire. How was that experience, man?
So I was very anxious for it to start. It's called the Marketplace. And then I didn't know what it was all about. You know, it's new, very, very new. So it was a little bit of anxiety going into it. Then I got an email that said, hey, your Marketplace is open. Click on the link. And then what they've done is, for us in the military, we have branch managers. We have, career managers. And they have gone in and they have said, these are the positions, the duty stations or assignments that we think would help your professional growth and progression. And then they just give you a list. It varies. So I had 25 assignments to choose from. But I think one of the things I did, it was lucky because it happened. I was home when I realized it was open. And my wife and I sat down and we went through them and we rated them together. So she's been around the military a long time. So she needed to have some input. And then some, she was all about Hawaii. And I said, but you got to understand with Hawaii, I'm going to the field for 30 days at a time. You're not. So you got to think about the things with me. And then she says, so cute. She says, well, you're a math sergeant. You're not going to the field. And I said, this is not accurate. No, I'm going. So, so it gives you some input. And then now the waiting game, right? Like my Marketplace opened on October 13th.
Yeah.
It doesn't close until November. And then we don't know what assignment we get until February. So from now to February, I know what I picked. And I didn't really have, all right, at this point in my career, Korea is terrible. I don't want to go to Korea because I'm trying to retire, right? Like there's things that we do and job fairs and things that the opportunities aren't going to be the same as Korea. As Brian points to his guide on. So I really didn't have anything terrible. Actually, I had some that I told my wife, I said, if this was 5 years ago, I'd like Okinawa, Japan, I'd have jumped all over that. If it was 5 years ago and I wasn't ready to retire, Air Force Base in Florida, MacDill Air Force Base in Florida, I'd have been all over it. So we'll see what happens from here. There is one that would keep me in my same house, and we would not leave Germany. So there is one, fingers crossed, that would not impact us much. I would move offices. I would move installations. I would move commands. That's it. So we'll see.
Yeah. That's crazy.
But it is a cool tool.
It's funny.
Good tool.
I'll know where I'm going next before you know where you're going next.
Yeah, but I know where I'm going after that, and you don't know when you're going to be able to say that part.
You're absolutely correct. Absolutely.
I'll meet you in Nashville when you retire.
Yeah, that's it. That's what's going to be. I mean, we know where the end state is. That's a good thing. It's just so, listening, because we just started this whole program, listening to what you had to say with it, because I haven't had any firsthand experience with it yet. I want to learn to be able to understand it, and I want to link this to training, because that's what we're going to talk about today. Is we're going over training, and we're just going to go over some simple methods of training. But for me to understand it, then I could further help, those who are, in my organizations that I'll be a part of, to be able to understand it and be able to kind of maneuver through it, so.
Yeah, I think the value for you, Brian, is you're going to find yourself you're going to have seniors, right, who are trying to figure out what's the next assignment to help me get to where you're at. And I think you need to understand how the Marketplace works, because they're going to come to you. And it's not like back in the day where you could be like, oh, I know somebody at Fort Knox and I'll just give them a call. Yeah. We'll get you It's not like that anymore. So I think that your knowledge really, maybe not as much into training this week, but it definitely goes into the coaching and mentoring that we've talked about previously. It's a tool that you can use.
Yeah.
And 100% somebody's going to come to you. Some first sergeant, some master sergeant's going to say, Sergeant Major, got a minute? Let's talk about, let's talk about my movement cycle. So yeah, I think that it's really important for you to understand. There are some tools on HRC, on the Human Resources website, that explain it. I didn't bother. I just went in there, and honestly, once you go in there, it's pretty straightforward. Like, they block out, you can't, there's this thing you could select stabilization, but that's only if you've already cleared it through your branch. If you haven't, that's not even available to you. It's there, but you can't click it. And then after that, you see a recommendation from your manager, what type of assignment and what you need to progress. So those are good tools for talent management. And then you just have the different assignments to rate. The one thing I'd like to see them improve is, I was telling you earlier, with the officer side, they can see specifically what that job is. And if there's a way to do that, somebody please message me on the Facebook page, because I could not figure out how to see what the specific job was. I can see the location, I can see a title, but it doesn't tell me this is a first sergeant job. This is a G3, job, whatever. And I'd like to know exactly what the job is, like the officers do. But if there's a way, I just couldn't find it. I'm not the most literate computer person, so maybe I missed something.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd appreciate if somebody listening who's military and understands it would message me and say, "Hey, just click this," and then I go do it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's gonna go hand in hand with. So I don't know if you know much about the SMAP, basically the Sergeant Major assignment program. I want to say it is. Anyways, they're building this right now. They're running the brigades through it. However, battalion's going to go through it, and then they're setting it up at each installation. First sergeants are going to go through it. So it's kind of like this thing that's supposed to put people in the right job, and the not so desirables will obviously not get a job, or those that are considered counterproductive leaders. Anyway,
I think it's I'm sorry. I think it's a long time coming for us in the military to kind of wean out the ones that aren't. And I think that this new promotion system, I would not want to be in it, but I also think it's going to weed out the strap hangers who are just collecting a check. I think you're going to get rid of them, because that whole, you didn't get promoted this year, back in the pool you go. I think you're going to find the cream's going to rise to the top.
Absolutely.
So, talent management, it's important.
Yeah, with that, I wanted to tell the audience to make sure that they understand that at no point is anything that we talk about in this show the opinion of the United States or the United States Army. We are going to talk about, however, we're going to talk about some key stuff that you and I have been dealing with for a very long time. Ed's got it up. If you're watching, you can kind of see his whiteboard. It may look a little distanced for you. However, we're going to cover all kinds of stuff. Right bigger.
Yeah, I'll improve it next time.
There we go. So what we're hitting upon today, we're going to hit upon training. We've talked about coaching. We talked about mentoring. There's coaching and mentoring really are like those one-on-one things. Training can be one-on-one, can be group. It's just a lot of things. And to be honest, I don't think people actually realize how important training is in an organization. Just period. If training is one of those things that, do you want your organization to grow, or do you want to stay stagnant? And that, to me, that's the overall concept of it. Either they're going to grow or they become stagnant. Now, how well we effectively do the training, all these things, which we're going to talk about, will ensure if it's good enough. Now, I gave you 3 different print-offs. I want to read this one, though, before it was the training challenge. So training is not easy. I don't care what anybody says. It is not easy, because we're going to go through the 8-step training model, which is, and Ed, that's what Ed mainly has behind him. But that is not easy if you're really trying to make it effective and useful. So in the Army even tells us, it literally verbally tells us through a manual, the officials within the service that tell us within a manual, hey, training is a challenge. It is a challenge. And this is what the Army has to say about it. And then I'm going to read this and then I'll kind of break it down in a second. It says the Army's training challenge is to optimize, synchronize, and support training in schools, training and education in units, and self-development training to produce forces and leaders capable of responding across the range of military operations. Internal to unit training, the greatest challenge is managing the broad number of commander responsibilities and requirements in relation to the time available to train and conduct unit activities resulting in overall unit readiness. So this is what I'm trying to get. We've talked about this on this show before, Ed, where it was a few years back, that study that was done, that there was more required training, a 350-1, we call it 350-1 training. There's more required training than actual training days. Yeah. That pretty much is what this regulation is saying. Hey, listen, we've got a finite amount of time. So now what we have to do is, as leaders, as even the commanders or the those who are involved in building the training, the operations, we have to look at, okay, so what are the priorities? What do we need to focus on to become better? What are we already good at that we can just kind of keep doing to make sure we stay proficient? But what do we got to build upon to say, hey, listen, we've just increased our capabilities because now our organization could do X, Y, Z. Now, however, one of the things I've seen, Ed, and you may have seen this also, your organization was at this level. They're at a peak high running level. We have a lot of talent management thing takes place. So people get moved around, people get taken out of the organization, put in the organization. Now you've just brought your capability of that organization down a notch. How do we get back up to that? And that's being able to basically look at it and assess, hey, this is what we used to be able to do. This is how we were able to get there and get to that. We need to do this again. So, I mean, that's, I just wanted to make sure we kind of really hit upon a whole, there is a massive challenge to doing this training piece. What you got, man?
So I think that, when the organization takes that hit from the talent management, that's where the creative and critical thinking of those who are still in that organization or the new lifeblood comes in, right? Because then not only can they help you get back to where you were, but that new lifeblood hopefully can bring you to another level. I've been in organizations where things were run one way, and then you go to another one and you're like, okay, I see some room for improvement, but let's observe, let's do our due diligence. Let's go through the motions. Let's work here. And then as you get more influence in that organization, you can say, hey, let's try this thing. It's worked. I've seen it work in the past. And then you can try whatever that item is to try to help the organization continue to grow, right? Not stay stagnant. Because at the end of the day, talent management happens. Boom, we come down. Boom, we come back here. But it's good that we got back to where we were, but we didn't improve either. And we got this new talent. So what was their impact other than getting us back? We could have kept the same people. So hopefully with that talent management piece, you can move up a little bit and your organization can grow. And in the military model, as you and I have seen, so I've been a little more blessed in that I don't move very often. So I've been in organizations for 7 years at a stretch where some people like yourself or some other people, maybe every couple of years, they're moving. And they're moving, and they're moving. So
you ain't talking about me.
So it's good and bad.
I didn't move that often.
Well, since you left Kentucky, you have.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it's good and bad though, because then I only know what I've seen for 7 years. But Brian comes in and he's moved twice in that same 7 years. He brings some new blood into the organization, hopefully.
Right.
And I think in training, I've seen it a lot in training. You see it in training and how we do training. Somebody always offers something and brings something new, new approach. And I've always kind of enjoyed that new approach to training because it has to be interesting or else you lose your participants, you lose your soldiers' interest if it's not interesting and they feel like you're wasting their time.
Oh, yeah. And, I think some of the key things that I always enjoy about Ed too is when you see the soldiers within an organization and the light bulb turns on and you're like, and you realize they get it. They understand what they were supposed to be able to do proficiently. and then you watch it. Like, we call it the crawl, walk, run phase. And you can literally see when it transitions while you're doing this training from the crawl to walk and then the walk to run.
Yeah.
Because when they start running, oh my goodness, man, they are off to the races. I mean, it's amazing.
So you made me think of something, Brian, real quick. The crawl. So a young soldier comes to me and she's like, "Hey, Sarn, I want to drive the forklift." And a little bitty soldier, right? Like 5 foot nothing. And I said, "Okay." And I said, "Well, we'll get you on the little forklift." And she's like, No. I want to drive the big one." I said, "Well, let's start with the little one." And so you started, driving. It's just so exciting just to get in the seat of the forklift. And then that becomes infectious to you as the person training, right? Because you're like, oh, they're into this. Like, let me help them. And then, so now the soldier's driving. She's doing the crawl with me there watching, and she's, walking. By the time the soldier's in the run phase of this forklift, so I couldn't get the soldier off the fork. A truck would come in. We're like, "Hey, we need somebody to unload the truck." And before I got the words out, soldier had the keys, had their helmet, and was on their way through. I got it on the forklift because they wanted to learn to drive it so much, and they took so much from it. And that's, to me, as a trainer, is the payoff, right? That infectious, that enthusiasm of doing something.
Exactly, man. And, I guess you could say, because we're going to talk about the 8-step training model here, but
we are.
I think you can catch, to me, what that little instance, you can catch some of the things that we consider to be part of the principles of training that I think every organization needs to have some type of principles to their training. Basically, it's kind of like saying, "Hey, listen, we fall back on this. These are the principles we need to meet," and whether it be a civilian organization or military. Well, military, we have them already cut and dry for us, and I'm going to explain what those are here in a moment. However, if you're in a civilian organization, you could even take the ones we're going to give and use those as your own. All right. You can redefine some of the words and use them as your own. But what this does is this kind of gives you a guideline to stay within the parameters of what is needed from you as an overall organization. And that's why I think about like that particular soldier wanted to learn how to use this piece of equipment. Well, to me, that hits upon a couple of these training principles. Train to maintain, train to fight, or fight to train, or train as you fight. Those are all things that we have to stay within. So what it says here, it talks about the principles of training provide foundational direction for all commanders and leaders. These principles guide and influence. See, I like that word. Influence. These principles,
I've heard it,
guide and influence training at every echelon. So every level, these principles work. The following principles of training complement each other, providing task and purpose to every aspect of how Army forces train. So real quick, I'm going to run down through them, and then we're going to jump into the real meat of the show today. So when it comes to these principles of training, commanders are the primary trainers. That's what they say, right?
Yeah.
What do they actually do for us? They give us their vision. They give us their training guidance. They give us the direction, but they pull all that from information about the organization and the organization's mission. So if I know my job is to move equipment from point A to point B, then I'm not going to focus training primarily on building gizmos. It's going to be about moving equipment from point A to point B and everything it entails that. Here's the one I've always enjoyed because I think, we fall into this one. Non-commissioned officers train individuals, crews, and small teams. They also advise commanders on all aspects of training. Why do we do this? Because we've gone through it. However, you have those saying, I'm not a fan of the naysayers. Like, we've tried that before. We'll never get it done. No, we haven't tried that. Let's try again. Maybe we tried it the wrong way. Maybe we tried it this way and not that way.
Take it as a challenge. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Like, I don't know if anybody's ever, if they understand, when you run into these roadblocks, people often will say, well, it's already been done. It's already been done. And it's like, I don't know if you actually have tried it completely. Yeah. Did you brainstorm this? Did you come up with alternate ideas and then just go with the alternates and not the primary? Like, there's so much that could be done.
So much. Yeah.
Let me continue on here. Training using multi-echelon techniques to maximize time and resource efficiency. This one right here, this is probably one of the key ones. So when we talk multi-echelon techniques, basically it's taking different organizations and being able to maximize the training by allowing them to kind of like rotate through like a training scenario, and that way everyone gets to take part in it, and then you're not wasting a resource. So I don't have one organization. Ed has another organization. He's deciding he's going to go train on movement to contact, while I'm going to train on just basic rifleman skills. Instead, what we do is we combine those together. We work together. We create two organizations that are both proficient now in the same thing, especially when our mission is the same. Or maybe he's a sustainer organization, I'm an aviation organization. We need sustainers to help us get our equipment and all our stuff to where we need to go, and then vice versa. Well, he's not well, yeah, he is. Logistics, get all my stuff there, and then I need to be able to move all of their stuff to another location. So we work together. Here we go. Train as a combined arms team. Okay, that's working together. Train to standard using appropriate doctrine. So we have doctrine that helps guide us. So we want to make sure we stay within that. This one I've always loved. Yeah. Train as you fight. Train as you fight. We train as we fight, and then we'll fight as we train, which that's the last one. Sustain levels of training proficiency over time. We can lose our ability to properly conduct whatever mission it is if we don't stay proficient.
Yeah, you can't just fire. You can't just fire and forget. Like,
absolutely not. Fire and forget. That's one of those a key term. We don't want to just we've done it once. We don't need to do it anymore. No, we keep doing
we got
it. Train to maintain. It's basically just to keep the force going. And we have 80% of the organization knows how to do things. We've got to keep them under a certain scope. And then fight to train. Fight to train, because we already know that we have to train to fight. Now we need to be able to conduct the opposite. Now, Ed, I've conducted the first two sections of what we thought were important. Now we're going to get into the meat, the goods of all this. Do you want to talk a little bit about, like, I know, kind of just bring us in, introduce us to this training model that we're going to introduce?
So really, when you talk about the 8-step training model, it is a useful guide for planning and conducting training and improving training. And, I've mentioned it before. One of the big things about training is it can't be boring and it can't be stagnant, because then you lose the enthusiasm of your audience. So that's why a model like this helps you ensure. And then, I don't know about you, Brian, but maybe some of our listeners have been somewhere. You went to a training and, they were like, oh, we're going to go up to the, we call it butcher board paper. We're going to go up to the whiteboard and we're going to write out these lists. Well, we don't have enough whiteboards. So like 8 of you just go to that board and 8 of you go to that board, because I don't have enough whiteboards. But that impacts training. And this model helps make sure that you have enough training aids, you have enough materials, because if I send 8 people to one whiteboard with one marker, the odds are I'm going to get input from the person writing, right? And I'm going to get some input maybe from 2 or 3. And then the other 4 are going to be back here. It's a new day. They're going to be on their phone, on the book of faces, or they're going to be, Instagram modeling or whatever. But they're not going to be paying attention to the training. So now I've reduced my audience. We're just, in this example, I've reduced my audience by half of the training. And again, as we move through these steps, you'll see how this model will help us stop that kind of stuff to make sure that the training is effective. So the first thing, Brian, is plan. And before the show, when we were talking, I said, this is one that I, as a young leader, struggled a little bit with, because I feel like the things when you're planning that you have to think about you get more and more from experience. But here's the tie-in. I'm a new leader. This is an opportunity for me to learn, but it's an opportunity for you, Brian, to coach and mentor me. It's an opportunity for me to say, here's my outline. And then you say, okay, well, have you got all the resources? Well, I think so. Well, what resources do you have? So for this particular training, what do we need? What do you have? Okay. And then I say, all right, I got that. I know where we're going for the training site. We want to do it at training area 11. Okay. Did you go to the 3 and coordinate that yet? No. Do I have to do that? Well, yeah, you got to go do that. And then I go, so it's an opportunity, Brian. So when we talk about planning, I gave a few. So what is being trained? I think that might be the very first question. All right, we're going to plan this training. What are we training? Who are the instructors and facilitators? Do I have SMEs? If I'm going to teach forklift training, do I have a master driver? Do I have somebody certified on that forklift? If I don't, okay, next question, right? Rabbit hole time is, okay, who conducts that training? Maybe my sister battalion has a master driver, so maybe I need to get with them and see if I can get an instructor from there, right?
Multi-echelon.
So that's it. Right. That's the multi-echelon. That's the thinking outside the box. Instead of just saying, well, we don't have anybody certified. I guess we're not doing forklift training. No.
Nah.
What can we do to get it? Now, once I've run the gamut, right? I've called my sister battalions. I've gone down the street to 4th Infantry Division. I was the old 1st Cav guy. They were the division down the street. I've gone down there and I've tried to find somebody. Maybe we just have, there used to be this really big forklift. We call her Big Bertha. She was a 10 Alpha, a huge forklift. And there weren't very many of them on an installation. So maybe 45D doesn't have. So now where do I get this training at? How do I got this asset sitting in my motor pool, but I can't use it. And I want to use it because it's a force multiplier, right? Now we reach out to like a TACOM and we reach out to the company who makes it and says, hey, who in Texas can do training on this? So you have to take those steps, Then, of course, you need your training site. And we're going to talk about the importance of that in step 3. We're going to talk about training site again. Training aids, right? I talked about having a group of 8 people around one whiteboard, maybe this big. What am I going to get from 8 people on this whiteboard? I'm not. I'm probably going to get 1 or 2 people that, but so you need to make sure, do I have adequate training aids? Do I have enough training aids? And this is all part of the initial planning process. And then for us, and a very big one is, has somebody done a risk assessment of the training? And has it been reviewed by somebody? Who's the decision authority for this training? Has it been submitted to them for signature, right? And there's so much more that could go in here, but I do think that this is a coaching and mentoring opportunity for somebody, we'll just say Sergeant E5 Haley, to receive from, Master Sergeant Weber. This is a chance for him to guide me. And I've had NCOs, when I was in the motor pool, I had Sergeant First Class Ramirez, retired now, Master Sergeant, and he was very quick to say, let me see your training plan. And he was one of those guys, Brian, that was like, I want to see it, 4 weeks out, 5 weeks out from the training, because he wants that opportunity to not have to rush to get it done and say, well, here's the answers. He wanted time to be able to say, okay, what happens if it rains? Oh, well then, okay, well, what's the next thing? What are you going to lift with the forklift when we're doing the training? Those type of things. So he wanted it early enough, and he took those opportunities to mentor me. I'm going to tell you, the first time they gave me a range, I was like, and then it was a 9mm range, right? So we don't shoot 9mm, and they're like, "Hey, you're gonna be the NCOIC of the 9mm range," and I'm like, "I am. I've never shot one of those in the Army, so where do I start?"
Yeah.
So,
yeah, absolutely.
So that's planning. That's step 1. What do you got, Brian?
So when I look at that planning, Ed, one of the things I want to, because we obviously talk mainly military, but this can also be transformed onto the civilian sector.
100%.
It talks, the very first sentence, it talks about leaders develop specific and measurable training objectives based on the commander's guidance. The commander obviously is kind of like our CEO of our organization, right? And they say, okay, we need to be able to get our organization at this level for this particular type of operation. So let's say we have a civilian organization where it's a CEO. The CEO says, hey, I need all my sales personnel able to do X, Y, and Z, right? And this helps initiate leads, all this stuff. That's where they're pulling this training out of. So when those of you listening, to understand it, they're saying, hey, this is what the organization should look like. Now, you as a leader within that organization, you say, oh, well, for us to get there, because of my experience, my understanding, and the research I've done, this is the training. These are the specific measurables. I'm basically, here's my criteria. I am basing everything off of this, and these are the elements that we need to hit.
What equates to success? Yep.
Absolutely, the ways to success, and that's the key point of it. When some people, they put their training together, I don't think they think about those and then bounce it back off of it. Will X equal Y? It's just one of those things. But yeah, I think planning, obviously everyone should know that planning a training event is a significant emotional event. If not done right with the right people. But yeah, that's what I have, Ed.
All right. So I just wrote up here off of what you said. I added to my notes for the plan. What does success look like? I actually wrote, what does success look like? My bad. Good thing y'all can't read it. Stop it. And I wrote specific and measurable, which is funny because when I was in the instructor course, that's one of the things we used to tell people is what constitutes specific and measurable. What equals a go or a success? So that is, and it's funny because the document I used for this week, Brian, I got from the Fort Benning site, and it doesn't say, and I'll go back and double check. It doesn't say anything about when you're planning training, what is a success for that training. Because even if you do a multi-echelon giant field exercise, there's something that equals success for the brigade, for the battalion, even for the company, even down to the squad. There's things you want to achieve to equal a success. So, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
So I think that's planned. What you got? Can y'all see? I don't know. Y'all probably can't make it out. I'm going to get a better view, but Brian made me this painting, just so y'all know.
Yeah,
all right.
Doing more painting.
So, what's next, Brian?
We're going to move on to step 2, which would be train and certify leaders. I'm going to read through this real quick, and then we're going to break it down. All right, certification requirements are established, and leaders and trainers are certified to lead and conduct the training. Certified personnel must have detailed knowledge of the training subject matter and have performed the task to standard themselves. This step also includes training and certifying opposing forces, otherwise known as OP4 leaders. All right, so right here, off the bat, certification requirements are established. Basically, we're saying, we'll look at the bigger picture. What is our training? What is our criteria? Now, how do we certify those requirements? How do we say, okay, this makes it a go? This makes, this, I guess you could say this is the criteria. This is where we get into that part. And then leaders and trainers, they are certified on their understanding and then ability to conduct the training. Ed, you and I, we did this. We went through this.
I knew
we were in the same class. Well, at first you went to the first classroom, then you had your accident, then you came to my classroom. I'll bring it up. All right. However, we went through this together. There's a certification requirement for us to become instructors. We went through that certification, and it established that we were certified to lead and conduct the training that then we had to go become BLC instructors, right? And would you say, when you look at that program, right? And the crazy thing is, I'm hoping I can get you kind of give me two sides of it, right? Because I know you're going to be a little subjective over it, right? When you look at the program, do you feel like it prepared you properly to train to trainees?
So there's two sides to this. There is.
Yeah.
I think that what we did, you and I, at the time, was okay. I think that the certain parts of it, the exam, I didn't think that was really a big deal. I didn't think it was really necessary to take the same exams they took. But I get why. I get the why to it, but it was like, I mean, it wasn't complicated. The land nav I definitely got. I know this is going to kind of, you might be taking a little bit of back by this, but you might be taking a little bit of back by this, but the program at the end of my time, the program that Mr. Williams, the bearded ninja, and JC had going for the instructor certifications, I thought was much more efficient. Because they did every eval the soldiers did, right? Where you and I didn't have to, we didn't necessarily do that. Because I don't remember doing every single eval, you know what I mean? And maybe because I was on the injured list and they felt bad for me in their pity party. So that was the other side. I do think it got better towards the end because what was happening is the soldiers that we were bringing in to be instructors, they experienced what the student was going to experience firsthand.
Exactly. Yes.
And I thought that did aid in their development to make them better instructors. My only problem with that whole program all along was as how many years? 17 years, 16 years staff sergeant, the not being able to speak with students thing. I always had an issue with I knew we can make general military corrections, but that whole you're not certified, don't be alone with students, that I didn't like that part of it, but that has nothing to do really with the training. But that was always my big issue with it. That was the only really big issue I had with it.
That was a local rule, and that we had ended up following. This is what I got from what you brought up was, we didn't really get to like when you and I went through it, because then we later changed to the newer form of training, the adult version of it. But we didn't do everything the student did. And that's what, when I read this and it talks about training and certifying leaders, it says that certifying personnel must have detailed knowledge of the training subject matter. So if I'm training on forklift driving, or I'm training on how to make cold calls, I don't know. If I'm training on these, I should have already done it myself, not just once, but multiple times.
Yes.
Because every time you do it, you're probably going to run into a different roadblock. Now, maybe every time you do it, you run into that same roadblock. Oh, well, we've got to work towards this roadblock to help those being trained get through that also. So if we can't get past it, we got to help them get past it. And that's the whole point about certifying those individuals. So if you're out there and you're about to conduct training, or you're about to build training, one of the key factors is you really got to run this through the gamut. You got to see, hey, does my trainers actually know what they're doing? And are they able to do it so they can help mentor and coach? See how we brought that back in during the training? Yeah. They get a mentor and coach during the training to get people beyond those places where it seems like they're having difficulties. So, all right. What you got, man?
Yeah. So, Brian, that was good for training and certify. And I really like the whole, experience it yourself aspect of it. Definitely took me back to our days. So what we got next, though, this one's near and dear to my heart, and it's currently something that I do for training on behalf of the training audience. But number 3 is Recon the training sites. Leaders perform reconnaissance of training sites and report back observations of potential issues prior to execution. Leaders verify that training locations can support the training event and enable the units to accomplish its training objectives. They make contact with site support personnel and solve scheduling and coordination issues. Quite literally, Brian, this is what I do here. So we have great big exercise somewhere in Europe, and I go to the country where their training is going to be conducted. And, so you got to identify where's the training going to be done. So for what we do, we actually contact the country and say, hey, we want to do some training. We'd like to use this location. Will that work for you?
Yeah.
And then the country's military says, yeah, that's great. Come on. So we go out there, we take a look around. Okay, I'm trying to shoot HIMARS, right? So like rockets. I can't go to a camp that's like 5 square miles and say I'm gonna shoot HIMARS. So then it's not suitable. So that's something that comes out in his recon, right? To make sure it's suitable. If I'm going and I'm going to do some forklift training, right? And it's like a 15-degree incline. Okay, that's not, nobody's going to sign that risk assessment. So now it's not, I have to go back to the command and say, hey, there's an issue at the training site. Here it is. I can do a risk assessment if the colonel or whoever is willing to sign that. If not, here's my second course of action. I also know there's another site. I've already set up the recon it. It's more flat. We may, we're going to see it, whatever, end of the week. So when you do those recons, those are the things. And then this is one that the Fort Benning site had that I didn't see in our notes for the document you're using. And I'll send you the link for the one from Fort Benning. But accessibility for emergencies. Accessible for emergency care. That's another thing to consider in your training site, because we all know Murphy happens, accidents happen. Can we get a helicopter in? Can we get an ambulance in? Right? Sometimes you're going to do training, especially I don't know if you probably know, you're a maintainer. Hotel 8 training, right? So that's the recovery class where they learn to use the wrecker. They put them things in some locations where an ambulance isn't getting back there. And you can't get a bird down. But what's the location where we can get a bird down, aircraft? What's the location we can get to an ambulance? How are we going? What's the plan to deal with an emergency when we're remote like that? So you have to consider all those during your recon. I think the recon's another thing, Brian, that experience. The questions you ask on a recon. And so, like I said, what I do here, very similar. And when I first started going, there was questions that now I ask that I didn't even think of then. But now through experience. And then I listen to this captain, or I listen to this other NCO and what they ask. So I can ask the security questions. I'm not a security guy, but I take a protection guy with me, and I've heard him ask, and I know what he's looking for now, to the point where if he says, hey, I'm going to be on leave, I can't go on that recon, I can say, well, I got you. I know what you're looking for. I'll shoot you my notes. So that's something that's important for that recon. So for me, I have these little things on here. Recon training site, I think that is it suitable, and the plan for an emergency. I think those are two of the biggest pieces of that, because, I mean, I've been to some places and people don't think about this, but you go out there, you do your recon, it's nice and dry, it's a beautiful day, right? And then the rains happen, and now your tents, you're trying to put down pallets to make floors in your tents because your stuff is floating away. So those are the type of things these recons should bring out, Brian. So what you got? I know you've seen some recons go bad or good.
I have. However, I've also seen, I've seen them go good because, like, for instance, we had an incident back in our old instructor days where, everything was done correctly. Everything from the safety to the, everything was done correctly. And this young soldier was getting in the back of a truck.
I remember this well.
Yes, and it was a freak accident.
Yeah,
the soldier put the hand up to grab a hold of the ladder, to use the ladder as we're instructed. So we're doing the right things. The finger gets caught in this little tiny hook loop thing that I guess was just unlatched, and soldier fell. Soldier's finger is then de-sleeved, and I mean, it was just like, wow. When you seen it, and it's just like, you're staring at it, you're like, what is that? It was, however, we use that training site multiple times every cycle. We did our risk assessments. We had all the proper stuff in play. We always had the medics available on each side. We had so many things that you would think, hey, you're not going to fail. That can still happen. Things will happen. And you know what I'm grateful for, Ed? The fact that we actually planned for an emergency and we were able to get that young soldier taken care of quickly. What you got, my man? You're about to show me something here.
I'm going to try to show you some bad. So this is the thing, right? This is the cotter pin. This is the wire. And then this is the ring. And then eventually, you get the ring and you got this the cotter pin here, and then you got the wire. And what she did is her finger went in here, and that wire.
Perfect. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you know what I remember about that incident, though? I have to say it, and I actually think he listens. Is my man Ray Lee? I remember Ray Lee. And believe me now, the soldier was okay. We did see the soldier a few weeks later, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not laughing at the event, but Ray Lee on the radio. Oh my God, there's so much blood. There's so much blood. There's so much blood. And I was like, calm down. Nobody knew what he was saying. The poor soldier. Yeah. So I wasn't on the ground, but the story I got from Shivas is the soldier standing there, right? And her finger is out here like this, and she's like, man, no. Like she was so in shock, from it.
Yeah.
And then there's Ray Lee. Oh, so if he's listening, my man Ray Lee, I haven't forgot you, brother. Yeah. And every time I think about that incident, but there was a plan, right? I mean, we did so much emergency planning when we were there for heat and
goodness.
For normal stuff you would expect, but that was unexpected. But it happened so quickly. Yeah, I remember that very well. So, so this one here, Brian,
there is a key. Is there key? It's key to recon that area. So how are you going to bring? What if you got to bring emergency services in? If they can't get to you.
Well, luckily we had gators and we had all kinds of to get out there. So what we got here, Brian? We got number 4, and it's a very military language thing. We're talking about issuing. Oh, wait a minute! Did I do 3? I did 3. It's your turn.
Sure did. Yeah. Here we go.
Oh, you were trying to rip me off. You were going to let me go too.
You're doing a great job. You got the whiteboard. I'm just staring at mine. It has other things on it. No. So issue the operation order, otherwise known as the op order. I'm going to read through this, but I'm going to kind of explain in layman terms what we're going with here. So
I'm glad you got this order.
This order specifies responsibilities, timelines for the execution, tactical scenarios, and other key information necessary to execute the training event. Leaders identify the tasks trained, training objectives, the training mission, and the method to execute the training. Leaders ensure subordinates have all available information to prepare and execute the training event. A successful training event relies on all leader understanding the expected outcome and remaining focused on the training objective. All right, so layman's terms here. Basically, if you've never seen an op order, you have no idea what an op order is. You're like, what are these guys talking about? This is basically a document that says it's a 5-paragraph format, but it gives you the who, the what, the when, the how, the why. If you have a question, it answers most of those questions in most cases. However, there's the other side of things. If you don't understand something, then you send up what we call an RFI, request for information, because you didn't understand exactly what happened. So it's a communication, but it's a hard paper that allows you to see, okay, all right, they're saying, all right, Bravo Company is going to execute a downed aircraft recovery team training. Got it. I can do, and then it gives me, okay, so this unit's going to, then we're going to have the sustainers and the SSA providing XYZ. We're going to have another organization providing aircraft to fly them in. We're going to have another organization, transportation organization, and then it gives like each one of those units that's being used. It gives them tasks and equipment that they have to provide. I find it to be useful sometimes, and other times I find it to be a headache. Because then you're like, well, I got to coordinate all this. I got to do this. It just really depends upon the people you're dealing with primarily. That's usually where my headache is. It's the actual involvement of individuals.
Or who wrote it. Yeah, because I've seen some that are written in a lot of depth. So here's what I got for you, Brian. The op order, right, down here at number 4, the op order is all of this. Because I'm going to tell you who's being trained, where we're training, when we're training. I'm going to lay out the instructors that I want and how I'm going to certify them, right? And then we can skip when's the recon. That's when I'm going to put my date time group of the recon. But then let's go all the way to the back, right? You're like, well, it's in the middle. What about the last 4 things? Okay. Training. Here's what equals success. Hey, we're going to do the AAR at this time and this date after the training's complete. Retraining, like all this stuff, all the PCCs, PCIs, pre-combat checks, pre-combat inspection, it's all going to be rolled up in that op order. So to me, right, if we're not going chronological, then op order should be number 1 because it's going to cover everything that comes after it. Or it could be number 8. We can say, hey, everything 1 through 7 goes into number 8, but it's number 4. It's number 4.
It's number 4 on that. Yeah, and you know, Ed, this is the key thing too. Is I would encourage organizations if you're listening and you're a part of something else and that you're not a part of the army or the military, because that's what we use. But if you're like in a civilian sector and you haven't used in like an op order type format thing to get things done, I recommend you do it because it is a foolproof way to ensure people who are signed and they are completing their duties that they need to. And then to use it for training, you're building the whole outline of what the training is.
I would say it's not foolproof because
not completely.
The people it's issued to need to read it too. I just ran into this recently where people half read it and then miss key information. So that's the important part is they do need to read it. And then there's other parts to it that we don't even talk about during this. The warning order or warno, which basically tells you, hey, this thing is going to happen. It's coming so that you can start preparing your mind and wrapping it around that this training is coming, right? Like we're going to conduct the M4 qualification range in February. Here's your warno now, right? And that's just basic strip down information. The more detailed information will come in the op order. And then, oh, by the way, something happened and you're not going to get the range when you thought, then we're going to issue what's called a frago or fragmentary order, and we're going to change the dates of the range. So those are other pieces of the op order, but the op order is important. It is. And I didn't know how to read an op order or write an op order until I was at the Krekel. That was the first time I had to really worry about it.
Hey, we've been here at my school. We've been dealing with a few, and I'm like, these are large scale, complex ones, and I'm like, wow, I've never seen them like the way these. Like you're talking 800 page, you know, and you're oh wow, there's so much involved, but I think it's pretty.
If our listeners have something that they use that this sounds familiar to you, and you're listening, you're like, wow, that sounds kind of like this that we use in our organization. If it's something that's releasable and you want to like send it to Brian or I through social media, then we would welcome. I would like personally, as somebody who's getting ready to retire way before Brian retires, I wouldn't mind seeing it because me moving forward. I mean, this is something Brian's right. If you understand the op order, I think you could import that, bring that into an organization with you, and it could help. Distribute taskings in the organization. I mean, honestly, for us in the military, if you want me to do something and it's not in an op order, that's called an asker, not a tasker. A tasker is something you can hold my feet to the fire. An asker, I can be like, no, I ain't doing that.
Yeah.
Tasker, not an asker.
Absolutely. And this is the key thing about op order too, and I've seen this now. You just got to be careful. You can't get lazy with it. But once you have a good one built, you can just recycle that thing, pull and plug information in. Whether routine training. Routine training is it's one of those things where you just got to change that names, dates, locations sometimes, but a lot of the same information. Yeah, exactly. So, but I think that's key. So, all right. So we're going to move on from this op order piece, which we do consider to be important, to the number 5 step.
That is important. So number 5, hold on, Brian, because I don't have I keep coming out the frame. I'm going to squat down. Now, so the number 5 step, this one's important. And the bearded ninja would be ashamed of us if we didn't say it was important. But this one's very important. This is important to the operation. This is important to the training. This is important to your perception of you. So very important. It's rehearse. Leaders conduct rehearsals to ensure plans are synchronized and actions are understood by subordinates. Leaders supervise rehearsals to ensure those responsible for training are prepared and organized. This step includes conducting rehearsals necessary for the opposition forces, leaders, and personnel. And so this is one, as a junior, this also used to annoy me with Sergeant Ramirez, because Sergeant Ramirez, I basically gave the whole class to Sergeant Ramirez. That was my rehearsal. Yep. In front of him, every step, pretend. He literally, Brian, would make me pretend I had 6 soldiers. And I would give the handout to him, and then I would give him my 5 imaginary soldiers as well. And, just kind of went back to, and then that ties in well with somebody, I'm not saying Bearded Ninja's name, but used to teach the empty chairs when I was over there working with them. And I picked that up and I started doing that. And it's literally just you in the room, and you're going through the training you're going to give, and you're saying, well, what do you think about that, Schmugatelli? Well, do you agree with him, Schmugatelli? Like, so you go through the motions in the rehearsals, but it does, from my own experience, it did help me with a comfort level. It helped me get comfortable talking. Even though there's nobody in the room, my comfort level increased with being in the room by myself. Then when I got in front of people, I was able to perform, which is really strange. I'm actually used to be very shy. I was able to perform in front of people and avoid stuff like crutch words and gestures and things like that. So rehearse. So during rehearsal, this is when we identify our weak points, or the weak points in the training. So you as the SME, right? You as the senior, you're watching whoever you've identified as your facilitator give this training, and you're taking notes, because you're going to give them AR afterwards, right? After the rehearsal, to help them get ready, and so that they look good in their actual live training. Does the training flow? We've seen this before. I'm gonna tell you, I feel like early in our podcasting careers, we had an issue sometimes with flow. It was like we were on a topic, then we were in this topic, then we went to this topic, and we still have a problem with rabbit holes, but that's fine. That's fine. That's the nature of a podcast. It's a conversation. It's a back and forth. But during training, if you don't have a good flow, you will lose some of your audience, because some are going to keep up with you because their mind runs just like yours. But then others are like, what is he talking about? And by the time you're able to try to reel them back in, it's too late. The fish is off the hook. So this is our big one, right? You and I have always been taught we train the standard, not to time, right? But we need to ensure we have sufficient time for achieving those standards that we identified. Nothing's worse to me than rush training. We're going to do this training, but we only got 30 minutes, and we're going to talk about 45 pages of material. No, that's not going to work. Yeah, that's not happening. And if it is, we're not getting anything out of it. And nowadays, the way we train, right, there's no conversation. There's no back and forth for that stuff. The training aids, this has happened to me too. And Murphy's going to happen. A big thing here in rehearsals is you're going to identify, do I have operational training aids? Are my training aids sufficient for the training? Do they complement the training? Because I don't need to have a widget just to have a widget. I need to have a widget that validates something that I'm trying to train, right? It's got to complement it. But I have also many times, Brian, I can guarantee this has happened to you. You do everything you can, and then you get to the live training and something doesn't work right? Something.
Oh, absolutely.
It's going to happen. But the only thing we can do to try to avoid that is rehearse and review the PCCs, PCIs, our own pre-combat checks, pre-combat inspections as the trainer. As the senior, make sure that you're looking at what they should have checked. Like I said, I was talking about last episode about my young soldier got frustrated with the computer. He checked that thing. That thing worked. He checked it 3 different times that I know of. But then when it was time to go live, didn't work. So it happens, right? But that is stuff that gets flushed out in a rehearsal, my friend.
Yeah.
What you got, Brian?
Decrease failure through rehearsals. I don't care what anybody says. You rehearse and you're going to eliminate majority of the problems that you're going to run into in the actual thing. Even if it's just a speech. Let's say we're not doing training. Let's just say we got to present a speech to someone, or we got to speak to a group. If I practice it, I'm not going to fumble as much, and I'm probably going to refine it enough to where it sounds more professional, and I'm not going to sound as if though I have no idea what I'm talking about, because when you rehearse it, you're like, oh wait, that didn't make sense. Let me change that. So I practiced I had an oral assessment I had to do a couple weeks ago, and it's basically you're by yourself, with your two instructors, and you do an oral presentation. You can draw some stuff. You can't walk into the room with any type of notes or anything. You can draw some stuff on the board from memory, and then you have to present it. Brother, I sat right in this spot we're at right now. I have a whiteboard up here, and I have my Peloton sitting right there. I treated the Peloton as if it was one of many of my people, and I was talking to it, rehearsing my entire piece. Now, that boosted my confidence going into that, right? It's the same thing with a training. If you were a primary instructor, or you're providing some type of asset for it and you're a part of it, if you rehearse it, you're not going to feel as on the spot. And then also, let's say the trainees, those that you're training, are asking questions. Maybe you can feel the questions a little bit better through the rehearsal, because you went through what they're about to go through.
Yeah,
so that's just my 2 cents on rehearsing. Absolutely. Well, we're gonna jump into step 6. We're finally going to train. Finally there. We're finally there. Like, so you think about it. Step 1 through 5 is all this preparation, and I'll tell listeners all day long, you're going to spend more time preparing and closing out the training than you're actually going to be doing the training. Yeah. And if you don't, then you may have you were winging something you shouldn't have been. So here we go. So step 6 is training. Training is executed. Tasks are observed and evaluated, and training objectives are trained until proficiency is achieved. As participants perform tasks, trainers evaluate performance against published standards. So those standards were developed further up in part of the whole planning the training event. And then when you develop those, then you test those against your trainers and certified leaders, right? So you're basically saying, hey, this is the standard. We've tested the standard. The standard works. Now we're going to train these individuals on that standard, and they need to meet that standard to be able to be proficient where we need them. The whole aspect of the training, that's the fun part. I'm gonna tell you right now, that's when I usually have the most fun, is during the training event, because one, I'm seeing something prosper that I may have helped develop, or I developed. 2, I'm seeing others grow from it, and they're starting to catch on to the things that that we're training on. And then 3, it's the fruit. The fruit has bared, and now it's time to pick the fruit, if you know what I mean.
All right. So sorry, Brian. So now we've done our training, and the next thing that we want to do, we want to do it as soon as possible. We want to do it as close as possible to where the training was. Right?
Yes.
We've had a full episode where we've talked about the importance of the after action review, my friend. So we're at that now. We're going to do the after action review. We've done our training, and we want to know, successes and failures. How do we build a win streak on the training? And this is how we're going to do it. So the AR is conducted during the training and after the training event. That feedback is then provided to the unit commander to help assess the proficiency of the organization. Lessons learned are discussed, recorded for future use, and shared with the units and leaders. These reviews help improve unit training as well as the unit's tactics, techniques, and procedures. TTPs. TTP. I hit the wrong thing there. Yeah, TTPs. So what I have that goes along with what I just read, was there an eval conducted after the training? So we talked about earlier specific measurable things, right? Was there an evaluation completed? Was there an AR even done? We're going to make sure that's done. You need to do that.
Yeah.
That AR not only develops your organization, but it develops you. And then for me, right, as the senior, one of my NCOs conducted the training, but it develops me on how to best mentor and coach that NCO to help him best give training. So it helps so many different levels and different people. Where the training objectives met, very important, right? Training aids and materials, are they sufficient? We have enough of them? Did they work? Did they make sense with the training? And sometimes I'm going to tell you, I can definitely be an off-script trainer. So I may have things that made sense, and then in the moment, that 25% that I talked about during rehearsals that was still left over, in that moment, maybe I go off and I make some of my training materials invalid, my training aids. Got to be careful of that. But it does happen because you get caught up in the moment. I don't know about you. I'm a very excitable trainer, and I can lose track of, oh, yeah, I forgot to talk about that or use that thing. So, and then very important with the AR, we need to record them. We need to record them, and we need to forward them out. And so we've already talked about the structure of an AR, right? What was supposed to happen? What did happen? What went well? What can we improve on? And what are we going to do next time to make this training better for our organization, for our junior soldiers who are trying to learn? And that's what, to me, that's all this is about. And when you're doing these steps, and then you're going to do number 8 here in a second, but this is an opportunity. We're developing our leaders because by doing these right, following this model, we're showing them what the example is. And really kind of like informally, we're showing those junior soldiers what right looks like so that they can be like, that's what I want to be. That's what I want to do. So, but conduct AR number 7, Brian, also very important. That's not the camera.
So
that's the camera.
To me, the AAR is one of probably is probably one of the most important parts of the training besides the training itself. Because obviously you wouldn't do any of this if you didn't have the training. But this is where I want to draw the attention to that I often get from it is conducted during training and after the training event. So during, if let's say you're doing a larger annual training or some type of conference where you're with a large group of business individuals, so we're saying on the civilian side, we can compare this to military where we do like NTCs or JRTC, basically the CTC training, combined training centers. If you can strategically place stopping points or waypoints within the training to do small AARs, it will help make the overall training a lot better. One of the key things you could do is even, hey, in our training plan that we built, in that plan, X, Y, and Z are literally they are the culminating events within the training period. And it could be at the end of the day each day. But you plan in that AAR. You plan in a little bit of time for the AR. So you purposely say, we will do this. Because once you do that and you can record that information, you take that data in, you may be able to completely revise the training to, it's not going to always be flawless, but you're going to make it better each time. It's the problem is if people allow the entire training to take place over let's say a period of days. Let's just say 5 days. Over a period of 5 days, you're going to miss what happened on day 1 when you're at day 5. And the reason being is you're going to remember the last thing you did most of the time. Most of your memories are going to be the last things that you think about, from whatever took place. So let's say you're doing a 5-day ethics training, wherever you're at.
Ooh.
Right. And this 5 days ethics training is taking place. There's different subjects each day. At the end of each day, you do a small AAR on what was learned that day. And then, you go through that whole process of, hey, what was supposed to happen? What did happen? What were improvements? What are sustains? What are we going to do next? You hit those points, even if it's just a quick voco one. Somebody writes down some notes, it helps. But that's my key point when it comes to the AAR. We've talked in depth about AARs. AARs are important. They are.
Yeah. So the one thing you just triggered a thought. Do you remember how we did AARs in the instructor course?
It's been a while, bro. You're
going to
remind me.
end of the day, right? We're getting ready to release them to do their cleanup, so I don't have to clean up.
Mm-hmm.
And then we would say, hey, what were we supposed to accomplish today? What did we accomplish today? And then we would say, on your way out, there's a 3x5 card in front of you. We want you to write one thing that was done well today and one thing we can improve on, and drop them on the desk as you walk out. Boom. They drop them on. We shuffle through them, right? The Bearded Ninja and JC and I shuffle through them. And then the next day we open with them. We say, okay, we went through these, and on this one here, we thought this was a good one. What's a way you think we could improve that?
Yes.
And we would have a discussion to open the day based off the previous day's AR comments. But we didn't let them go home without leaving comment, because you want it fresh, like you said. So it just triggered something in me. And that's, any organization could do that. 3x5 card. Even if we're not doing training the next day, you can at least do that part. And then the next time the organization gets together for training, you can open with, last time we received this feedback. These are some things we're looking at changing. So,
and you know what you're going to do? You're going to get buy-in. When you do that, you get buy-in, Ed, from people, because you're actually taking their thoughts and ideas and you're incorporating it. And we've talked about this before. When you incorporate somebody's thoughts and ideas, now it's their baby too, and they don't want it to fail. I mean, it's that simple.
That's absolutely true.
So, all right. So we're on our last one. We're on our last step, Ed. This one, this is a key piece, because this is just kind of going back and hitting upon what took place earlier in a sense. But it's step 8 is retraining. All right.
Yeah.
Tasks not performed to standard are retrained and reevaluated until the standard is achieved. Units do not depart the training event with tasks not trained to standard and training objectives not meet. Now, here's what I'm going to say. Yes, you do sometimes leave the training area if the standard is not met. If you beat a dead horse, you're not getting anything from it. You're going to lose some interest.
Yeah.
So, Ed, when we would do land navigation, right? We taught land navigation. We tested land navigation. We retrained it. Then we retested it.
Several
I can tell you right now, absolutely. It's over multiple days. I would tell you, if we did the testing, the retraining, and then the retesting in the same day, I think we would have had a higher fail rate. 1, 2. I think we would burn out those soldiers and they wouldn't care very much. But what I thought was great is we did do retraining the same day. We often did it the same day as the test.
Because it's fresh.
So it stayed fresh. Yep. Because we can hone in on their failures that they missed, or maybe the waypoints that they messed up, or something that they messed up on. Well, but then, go ahead.
No. So I don't know what you brought, but I often found that when you did the retraining the same day too, they had aha moments. You would have a soldier and you'd be retrained. They'd be like, "Oh, sorry, I know what I did wrong now." Well, what did you do wrong? They would explain it to you, and then they'd go out the next day and at the retest and be successful. But a lot of times you do that retraining, it's so fresh in their mind, they're still living in that moment, that as you're doing the training, they would be like, "Oh, that's what I did." Oh. So, whether it be, I used magnetic north, I don't know why I did that, or whatever it was. So, that was one of the benefits, I thought, to conducting it so quick when we were there.
But what's the benefit of retraining, everyone? I will tell you this. It's ensuring that those people who didn't meet the mark or meet the standard, you can help get them to where they need to be. And it's a perfect time for coaching and mentoring. It's a perfect time for it, because you've already trained this large group over here. That large group all get it. You know that, right? Now it's time for you to kick in as that influencer, that mentor, that coach. And maybe you do the one-on-one with those individuals. And now you're like, those are the enjoyable moments I got, Ed, was when I saw the light bulbs click on those land nav on the retraining. I used to love doing the retraining, because it was like, oh, what you just said. Oh, I see what I did wrong. I went this way and I should have went. I did 180 degrees than what I was supposed to. Exactly, right?
Yeah.
And then you go out there the next day for the actual retest, reeval, and they all just smoke it. But I guess that's the good point about it. Ed, we went through this entire 8-step training model, right? And did you want to hit some more upon retraining before I go any further on this?
So no, I think we're good. I mean, it also, so from what I was reading, there's a good chance that's where you review the AAR, right? That's where your unit then identifies a need to conduct further training. You dig into reference material, and then retraining launches all the way back around to planning the next training of that event if necessary. So I think that becomes a big circle, right?
It is. It's like the operations process, man, which we could always talk about too. It's funny. As we were going through this, Ed, not only as I was looking it over previously to prepare for this, because I did rehearse by reading it. However, I felt like we were back to where we were, because we used to train this. I remember, and we would teach our students how to give a proper class, and you ended up creating a whole nother class that wasn't even really a class off of just teaching these steps to get kids to know how to give a class, because they were always worried about their evaluation. And then that turned into an actually better class than some of the classes we had to give, and that's like, and you started saying things up there, and then you're on the whiteboard. I'm thinking, dude, did he have a rubric with him or something when he built this? Because it sounded just like off of our rubrics we would use when we would evaluate our students on the training events.
The ninja beat it into me.
Yeah, definitely. So with this, if those of you out there listening, if you want to find this, you can find the 8-step training model. All you have to do is Google.
Anywhere.
Just literally Google Army 8-step training model, and it will populate. And there's a lot of good information out there. There's civilian organizations that actually use this too. So, it could help you out. It can make your organization a little bit better. So we kind of went through, Ed. We started off with coaching, which is, that kind of one-on-one, whatever. Then we mentoring was kind of like it's also one-on-one. And then we turned it into this training. Where my ideas behind this was the fact that all three take place in influencing, right? We influence through our actions, our words, our deeds, 100%. Things like that. And to me, when you're coaching people well, when you're mentoring people well, and when you're training people well, you're hitting upon what we're looking at for influencing and being a better leader. I don't really have much left for the show today. What do you got that you want to talk about before we start closing it out?
Well, Brian, I'd like to talk about how our listeners can be connected with you and I. They can do that by checking out our Facebook page as well as our Instagram at 101 Influence. They can check us out at instinctiveinfluencers.com. They can meet the faces, see the faces, something. Brian, I think Brian's got it under construction maybe. But yeah, go to the Facebook page. It's a closed, I guess I jumped the gun on that one. Retraining, Brian. Retraining. We're going to, go to the closed Facebook page, answer the questions, jump in there. And like I said, if you have some kind of like training model or an op order that you use in your organization, I mean, that'd be great to share with the team. And that's what we are here. We're a team and a family. Speaking of team, Brian is joined the bandwagon. He cheers for anybody playing me in fantasy football right now. I just want everybody to know that. Do. Also, go to our YouTube page. Check out the YouTube. Give us a big thumbs up. All right. Subscribe and leave some comments. And hopefully the video quality gets better. I wanted to try something new. I got to tell you, Brian, I wanted to try this new this week. This might be a thing, but we got to not have long podcasts because my feet hurt, man. But I feel more energetic. I feel more like into it, when you're at the board. So yeah, we might do some more scenery changes. Maybe Brian will do one. But good discussion this week, Brian. I thought it was great.
Yeah, I totally enjoyed it. I'm going to have to flop some stuff around so I can get my whiteboard involved maybe at some point. And yes, as he talks about the I cheer for anyone. I'm basically this week I'm basically
cheers against me.
Well, I'm just saying I'm against your entire household right now, that in your house except for Pat.
That's because they keep beating you.
No, because I'm trying to beat the brakes off your wife this week. So we're going to see what happens there.
I'm going. I got a trade on the table for her. Oh, by the way, speaking of trades, Antonio Brown, she missed the train, and then he had another good week last week and this week.
Yeah.
And I believe, what's that old guy's name? Used to be in New England. I tried to trade him to you. You didn't want him. Oh, Tom, the number one quarterback in the NFL. Yeah, thanks for not trading me for him. I'd have really regretted that one, buddy.
All right. Hey, I think this is definitely leads to we need to do an AAR on what took place and some retraining on NFL fantasy football. Hey, seriously, it was a great show. I enjoyed it. I felt like I was back in the instructor suite of things, but with that, I am Brian.
And I am Ed.
And this has been the Instinctive Influencers podcast. We thank you so very much for all that you do and for listening to our show. Have a safe day. Let us know what you think. Check us out. Be a legend.